The smell of alien food and strange chemicals filled the air on Kepler Station. Maina walked through the crowded market halls with her worn boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it. She had learned to ignore hunger weeks ago. 2 credits. That was all the money she had left in the entire galaxy. 2 small metal coins that barely bought a cup of water at most places. Maina touched them in her pocket as she moved past the expensive shops and fancy restaurants where rich traders laughed and spent money like it meant nothing. The pet market was at the far end of the station in the old section where the lights flickered and the air recyclers made strange noises. Maina had never thought about buying a pet before. Pets were for people who had homes and steady jobs and enough food for themselves. But today she felt so alone that even a small creature might help chase away the emptiness. Colorful birds with 3 heads sang in golden cages. Tiny elephant-like animals with purple fur played in glass boxes. Strange fish that seemed to be made of living light swam in floating water bubbles. All of them cost hundreds or thousands of credits. All of them were far beyond what a failed salvage worker could afford. Mina stopped at each stall anyway. The alien merchants looked at her dirty clothes and tired face and quickly turned to help other customers. She did not blame them. She looked like someone who could not buy anything worth selling. At the very end of the market row sat a small stall that looked ready to fall apart. The alien running it had green skin and 4 arms. He looked as tired and hungry as Maina felt. His few cages held creatures that seemed sick or broken. Most of the other shoppers walked past without even looking. "You want pet, yes?" the green alien said when he saw Maina stop. His voice was rough and he spoke human words badly. "I have good pets, very good, very cheap." Maina looked at the cages. A 6-legged cat thing with half its fur missing lay in one corner. Some kind of bird with a broken wing sat sadly in another cage. These were not the bright, healthy animals from the expensive stalls. These were the ones nobody wanted. Then she saw it. In the smallest cage at the back sat something that looked like a tiny lizard. It was about the size of her hand with dark scales that seemed dull and lifeless. Its eyes were closed and it barely moved. At first Maina thought it might be dead. "What is that one?" she asked. The green alien followed her pointing finger. "Ah, that one. Very bad, very sick from Draconis system. Should be companion beast but broken, no eat, no play. Just sleep all time." Maina moved closer to the cage. As she did, the small creature opened its eyes. They were gold. Not yellow or orange, but pure bright gold like liquid metal. For just a moment those eyes looked right at her and Maina felt something strange, like recognition. Like the creature knew her somehow. "How much?" she asked. The alien laughed. Want that one? That one dies soon. Look, I show you nice rat thing. Very smart. Only 30 credits. I want to know about the lizard thing. The alien sighed. 50 credits. But waste of money. Better you buy food. You look hungry. 50 credits. Maina almost walked away. She could not afford 50 credits for anything. But those gold eyes had looked at her with such intelligence, such sadness, like it was asking for help. "I only have 2 credits, she said. The alien stared at her. 2 credits? You make joke, yes?" "No joke. 2 credits is all I have." Other customers were looking now. Some laughed. Who came to buy pets with only 2 credits? Maina felt her face turn red, but she did not move away from the cage. The alien looked at the tiny creature, then back at Maina. He seemed to be thinking hard about something. Finally, he threw all 4 arms up in the air. Fine, 2 credits. You take broken beast. My problem become your problem. Maybe you both die together." Maina could not believe it. She pulled out her 2 credits and put them on the counter. The alien grabbed them quickly like he thought she might change her mind. "You have cage?" he asked. "No, of course no." The alien found a small transport box and put the tiny creature inside. It did not fight or make noise. It just curled up in the corner like it had given up on everything. "You sure about this?" the alien asked as he handed her the box. "Thing probably dead by morning." Mina looked through the air holes at the small creature. Those gold eyes were open again and watching her, I am sure. She carried the box back through the station to her tiny room in the cheapest section. The room was barely big enough for a bed and a small table. No windows, no decoration. Just four metal walls and a door that barely locked out. Mina sat on her bed and opened the transport box. The creature did not try to escape. It just looked up at her with those strange golden eyes. Up close she could see that its scales were not just dark. They had tiny flecks of other colors mixed in. Blue and green and silver, like stars scattered across a night sky. "Hello, little one," she said softly. "I am Mina. I do not have much, but I will share what I have with you." The creature tilted its head like it was listening to every word. Mina reached into the box slowly. She expected it to bite or run away. Instead, it crawled onto her palm and sat there. Its tiny claws were sharp, but it was careful not to scratch her. "You need a name," Mina said. "How about Haniel? It means sky. You have sky-colored scales." Haniel looked up at her and made a small sound, not quite a purr and not quite a chirp. Something in between. Something that sounded almost like it was trying to say thank you. Mina found a shallow dish and put some water in it. Haniel drank a little. She tore off a small piece of the protein bar she had been saving for dinner. Haniel sniffed it and ate. Tiny bites. As the station's day cycle ended and the lights dimmed, Mina made a small bed for Haniel from her spare shirt. The creature curled up on the soft fabric and closed its golden eyes. "Sleep well, little friend," Mina whispered. "Tomorrow, we will figure out how to take care of each other." She did not know that she had just bought the last prince of a dragon empire. She did not know that powerful enemies would soon hunt them across the galaxy. She only knew that for the first time in months she did not feel completely alone, outside. Her small room, the great space station, hummed with life and commerce, but inside Mina and Haniel slept peacefully. Two lost souls who had found each other when they needed it most. 3 weeks had passed since Mina brought Haniel home. The tiny creature was no longer the weak, dying thing from the pet market. Good food and clean water had worked wonders. Haniel now moved with quick grace, and his scales had begun to shine with inner light. But the most amazing change was his size. Haniel had grown from the size of Mina's hand to the size of a house cat. His body was longer now, with a tail that could wrap around her arm. His golden eyes seemed larger and more intelligent each day. "You are growing fast, little friend," Mina said as she prepared for another salvage job. "Soon you will be too big for this tiny room." Haniel made his special sound that was part purr and part chirp. He had started doing this whenever Mina talked to him. Like he was trying to answer back in his own language. Mina's work had not gotten any easier. She still took the dangerous jobs that other salvage workers would not touch. Old wrecked ships floating in space. Abandoned stations that might collapse at any moment. Places where the air recyclers had failed and toxic gases filled the corridors. Today's job was particularly bad. A merchant ship had crashed into an asteroid field 6 months ago. The cargo might still be worth something, but the ship was breaking apart. Chunks of metal and ice flew through space around it, making the approach very dangerous. "I have to go to work," Mina told Haniel. "Stay here and be good. I will bring you something nice to eat when I come back." But as Mina picked up her salvage gear, Haniel jumped onto her shoulder. His claws gripped her jacket, and he looked at her with those bright golden eyes. "No, Haniel, this job is too dangerous. You have to stay home." Haniel made a sad sound and pressed his warm body against her neck. Mina felt terrible leaving him alone, but salvage work was no place for a small creature. She gently pulled him off her shoulder and set him on the bed. "I will be back soon, I promise." The salvage ship was old and barely held together. Mina had bought it with her last good-paying job 2 months ago. The engine made strange noises and the life support system needed constant repairs. But it could fly, and it had the tools she needed for her work. As Mina started the engine, she heard a small thump from the cargo area. She ignored it. The ship made all kinds of noises. Another thump. Then scratching sounds. Mina turned off the engine and went to check. There in the cargo bay sat Haniel, looking very pleased with himself. "How did you get in here?" Mena asked. I locked my room. I locked the ship. Haniel just made his happy purring sound. Somehow, he had escaped from her room and gotten onto the ship without anyone seeing him. Mina looked at the cargo bay door. It was sealed tight. There was no way a creature Haniel's size could have squeezed through the gaps. This is impossible, she said. But I do not have time to take you back now. The job coordinator will give my work to someone else if I am late. Mina made a small bed for Haniel in the corner of the cargo bay. Stay here. Do not touch anything. Some of these tools can hurt you. The flight to the wreck site took 2 hours. The asteroid field was worse than Mina had expected. Chunks of rock and ice spun through space like deadly bullets. Her ship's old shields flickered each time something hit them. The merchant ship had been torn in half. The front section was wedged between 2 large asteroids. The back section drifted nearby with its cargo bay doors torn open. Mina would have to spacewalk to reach the valuable parts. She put on her pressure suit and checked all the seals. Spacewalking was the most dangerous part of salvage work. One small tear in the suit meant death. One mistake with the tether line meant floating away into the dark forever. Wish me luck, Haniel, she said as she prepared to leave the ship. But when Mina turned around, Haniel was not in his corner. He was sitting by the airlock door wearing what looked like a tiny pressure suit made of his own scales. The scales had formed a perfect seal around his body, leaving only his golden eyes visible. That is impossible, Mina whispered. You cannot make your own spacesuit. That is not how biology works. Haniel looked at her and made a determined sound. He wanted to come with her. Before Mina could stop him, he pressed something on the airlock controls with his nose. The inner door sealed and the outer door began to open. No, wait, Mina shouted, but it was too late. The airlock cycled and Haniel shot out into space. Mina expected to see him die instantly. Space was cold and airless and full of radiation. No living thing could survive there without proper protection. But Haniel did not die. He moved through the vacuum like he was swimming through water. His scale suit glowed with soft light and he seemed perfectly comfortable. Mina quickly activated her thruster pack and followed him. Haniel was already at the wreck examining the damaged cargo bay. He looked back at her and chirped something that sounded like hurry up in whatever language. He spoke. Working together, they explored the wreck much faster than Mina could have alone. Haniel seemed to know exactly where the valuable items were hidden. He led her to a sealed container full of rare electronics, then to another compartment with medical supplies that would sell for good money. But the real surprise came when part of the wreck started to collapse. A huge section of twisted metal broke free and spun toward Mina. She tried to dodge, but her thruster pack was too slow. The metal would crush her in seconds. Haniel moved faster than thought. He slammed into Mina's chest and pushed her out of the way. The metal debris missed her by inches. But now, Haniel was in the path of destruction. Mina watched in amazement as Haniel opened his mouth and breathed out a stream of golden fire. In space where there was no air to burn, the impossible fire melted the spinning metal into harmless droplets that floated away. They returned to the ship in silence. Mina kept staring at Haniel as they flew back to Kepler Station. Her small pet had just breathed fire in the vacuum of space. He had made his own pressure suit from his scales. He had saved her life with strength that should have been impossible for his size. What are you really? She asked as they docked at the station. Haniel looked at her with those ancient golden eyes. For a moment, Mina thought she saw something there. Something vast and powerful and very old. Then he made his usual happy purring sound and rubbed against her hand like any normal pet. That night, Mina lay awake thinking about what had happened. Haniel slept peacefully beside her, but she noticed he was bigger again, growing faster each day. And sometimes when she looked at him in the right light, his scales seemed to shimmer with colors that had no names. She was starting to realize that her 2-credit purchase had been no accident. Whatever Haniel really was, he had chosen her just as much as she had chosen him. The question was why. And what would happen when the rest of the galaxy found out what was living in her tiny room on Kepler Station? The alarm started screaming at dawn. Mina woke up to red lights flashing in her room and the sound of boots running through the station corridors. Emergency announcements echoed from the speakers, but the words were too fast to understand. Haniel was already awake. He stood on the small table by her bed with his scales glowing brighter than she had ever seen them. His golden eyes were fixed on the door like he was listening to something far away. "What is wrong, little friend?" Mena asked. As she got dressed quickly, Haniel made a low sound she had never heard before, not his usual purr or chirp. This was deeper and somehow sad, like he was mourning something that had not happened yet. Mena opened her door and looked into the hallway. People were running everywhere. Families carried bags and children. Traders pushed carts full of their most valuable goods. Everyone looked scared. "What is happening?" Mena asked a man running past. "Ziran fleet," he gasped without stopping. "Biggest one anyone has ever seen. They will be here in 1 hour." Mena's blood turned cold. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Ziran Empire. They were a race of tall reptile-like beings who conquered worlds and enslaved other species. Their ships were fast and their weapons could destroy entire cities. Most people tried to stay far away from Ziran space, but Kepler Station was supposed to be neutral territory. The Zirans had never bothered with trade stations before. They usually ignored places that did not have valuable resources or strategic importance. Mena went back into her room and started packing her few belongings. If the Zirans were coming, she needed to get off the station as fast as possible. Her salvage ship was not much, but it could outrun the big warships if she was lucky. "Come on, Haniel, we have to leave right now." But Haniel did not move. He sat on the table looking at her with those ancient golden eyes. For the first time since she had bought him, he seemed reluctant to follow her anywhere. "Haniel, please, we have to go before they get here." Haniel made that sad, deep sound again. Then he jumped down from the table and walked to her. But instead of climbing onto her shoulder like usual, he sat at her feet and looked up at her. Like he was trying to tell her something important. Before Mena could figure out what he meant, the station shook. A deep rumbling sound came through the walls and floors. The Ziran fleet had arrived early. Mena looked out her small window and saw them. Dozens of huge black ships that looked like giant insects made of metal and weapons. They surrounded Kepler Station in a perfect formation that blocked every escape route. "Too late," she whispered. The station's communication system crackled to life. A cold voice spoke in perfect human language. "Attention, inhabitants of Kepler Station. This is Commander Vex of the Ziran Imperial Fleet. You will remain calm and cooperate with our search. Anyone who interferes will be destroyed. We are looking for a specific target. When we find it, we will leave. Resist, and your station will be reduced to atoms." Mena heard heavy footsteps in the corridor outside. The Zirans were already boarding. Their soldiers wore thick armor and carried weapons that could cut through metal like paper. She had seen recordings of what happened when they searched a place. They tore apart everything until they found what they wanted. "Hide," she told Haniel. "Get under the bed and do not make any sound no matter what happens." But Haniel did not hide. Instead, he started to grow. Right there in front of her eyes, he got bigger and bigger. His scales shifted and changed color, becoming brighter and more beautiful. His small, cute face stretched and became longer. His neck extended and powerful muscles appeared under his skin. In less than a minute, Haniel had transformed from a cat-sized creature into something magnificent and terrifying. He was now over 20 feet long, with wings that barely fit in the small room. His scales shimmered like stars and his golden eyes blazed with inner fire. He was the most beautiful and dangerous thing Mena had ever seen. "You are a dragon," she whispered. Haniel looked down at her and nodded. When he spoke, his voice was deep and musical and filled with ancient wisdom. "I am Prince Dojin of the Royal Dragon House, last of my bloodline, heir to an empire that once ruled the stars." The door to Mena's room exploded inward. Ziran soldiers rushed in with their weapons ready. When they saw Dojin, they immediately dropped to their knees and pressed their faces to the floor. "Royal Prince," one of them said in a shaking voice, "we have searched for you across 1,000 worlds." More soldiers poured into the room until it was completely full. They all knelt before Dojin like he was their emperor. But Mina could see the fear in their eyes. They were not kneeling out of love or respect. They were kneeling because they were terrified. Commander Vex pushed through the crowd of soldiers. He was taller than the others, with scars covering his face and arms. When he saw Dojin, his yellow eyes went wide with amazement and hunger. "At last," he said. "The last royal war dragon. My emperor will be so pleased when I bring him your head." Dojin moved to stand between Mina and the Zirin commander. His great wings spread wide and filled the entire room. When he spoke, fire flickered between his teeth. "You will not harm her, Vex. This human showed me kindness when I was weak. She fed me when I was hungry. She gave me shelter when I had nothing. By the ancient laws of my people, I owe her a life debt that cannot be broken." Commander Vex laughed. "Ancient laws mean nothing now, dragon. Your empire is dust. Your people are extinct. You are the last one, and soon you will be dead too." "Perhaps," Dojin said calmly. "But I will not die easily, and I will not die alone." The air in the room started to get hot. Dojin's scales began to glow like metal in a forge. The Zirin soldiers backed away in fear, but there was nowhere to go in the tiny space. "Choose carefully, Vex," Dojin continued. "You can try to take me by force, and watch your soldiers burn. Or you can accept that some debts must be honored even by dragons." Commander Vex stared at Dojin for a long moment. Then he looked at Mina, who stood frozen behind the great dragon. She was just a human salvage worker, small and weak and unimportant. But somehow she had earned the protection of the most powerful creature in the galaxy. "Very well," Vex said finally, "but know this, dragon. The moment your human dies, your protection dies with her. And we will be waiting." The Zirin soldiers filed out of the room. Commander Vex was the last to leave. He stopped at the doorway and looked back at them. "Enjoy your freedom while it lasts, both of you." When they were gone, Dojin began to shrink back to his smaller size. But he did not become the tiny creature Mina had first bought. He stayed the size of a large dog with his wings folded against his back. "I'm sorry I lied to you," he said. "But I was weak and scared. I have been hiding for so long, I forgot what it felt like to trust someone." Mina sat down hard on her bed. Her legs felt like water and her mind was spinning. "You are really a dragon prince?" "I am the last dragon prince. My family was murdered centuries ago. The Zirins hunted us across the galaxy until they thought we were all dead. I survived only by making myself small and weak, by pretending to be something harmless." "But why did you reveal yourself now? You could have stayed hidden." Dojin looked at her with those ancient golden eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. "Because you were kind to me when you thought I was nothing. Because you shared your food when you were hungry. Because you chose to save a dying creature instead of saving yourself. Such kindness is rarer than dragonfire in this galaxy. It deserves to be protected." Outside her window, the Zirin fleet waited in the darkness of space. Mina knew they would not give up easily. They had spent centuries hunting dragons, and they would not let the last one escape, but for now she was safe, protected by a creature of legend who had chosen her above his own safety. A dragon prince who had been worth exactly 2 credits in a rundown pet shop. The galaxy was about to change in ways no one could imagine. And it had all started with a simple act of kindness in a place where kindness was supposed to be impossible. The Zirin ships did not leave. For 3 days they waited around Kepler Station like hungry wolves watching a sheep pen. Mina could see them from her window whenever she looked up at the stars. Black shapes that blocked out the light and reminded everyone that death was only a moment away. Dojin spent most of his time in his smaller form, but he never became as tiny as he had been before. He was always ready to grow large and fight if the Zirins tried to break their agreement. His golden eyes watched the door constantly, and his scales glowed brighter whenever footsteps passed in the hallway. "We cannot stay here forever," Mina said on the 4th morning. "They are waiting for us to make a mistake." Dojin nodded sadly. Commander Vex is not known for his patience. Soon he will decide that keeping his word is less important than pleasing his emperor. Then we have to leave tonight when the station is quiet. They will follow us, Dojin warned. Ziran ships are fast and their weapons are powerful. My fire can destroy a few of them, but not an entire fleet. Mena was already planning their escape in her mind. Her salvage ship was small and quick, but it could not outrun military vessels in open space. She needed something better. Something the Zirans would not expect. I have an idea, she said. But you will not like it. That night they made their way through the station's maintenance tunnels. Mena had learned these passages during her weeks of salvage work. They led to parts of the station that most people never saw, including the old military section that had been abandoned. Years ago, Dojin had shrunk himself down to the size of a house cat so he could fit through the narrow spaces. But even in his smallest form, his scales glowed with enough light to guide them through the darkness. "This is madness," he whispered as they crawled through a ventilation shaft. "If they catch us in here, we will be trapped like rats." "Trust me," Mina said. "I know what I am doing." The abandoned military section was full of old equipment and broken weapons. But hidden in the deepest storage bay was exactly what Mena had hoped to find. A small stealth ship that had been forgotten when the military pulled out of Kepler Station. The ship was old, and its systems were powered down, but the hull was intact. More importantly, it had cloaking technology that could hide them from Ziran. Sensors, at least for a while. "You want to steal a military vessel," Dojin said as they examined the ship. "That is your plan. It is not stealing if nobody wants it anymore. And this is our only chance to get away without fighting the entire fleet." It took them 2 hours to get the ship's systems online. Mina's experience with salvage work helped her figure out the old controls. Dojin used his fire breath to weld broken connections and melt through rusted bolts. Working together, they brought the dead ship back to life. The hardest part was getting out of the station without being seen. Mena had to hack into the traffic control system and create a fake departure for a cargo ship, while the Ziran sensors were watching the fake ship leave from the main docking bay. They slipped away from the military section on the opposite side of the station. For 10 minutes they flew in complete silence with all systems except life support shut down. The cloaking device made them invisible, but it also made them blind. They could not use sensors or communications without revealing their position when they were far enough from the station. Mina activated the ship's passive scanners. The Ziran fleet was still in position around Kepler Station. They had not noticed the escape yet. "It worked," Mina whispered. "We are free," but their freedom did not last long. Within an hour, the Ziran ships began moving. They had discovered that their prey was gone, and now they were spreading out to search for them. "Where do we go now?" Dojin asked as they watched the enemy ships scatter across the star system. Mina thought about all the places she had visited during her salvage work. Most of them were too well known or too close to civilization. The Zirans would find them quickly. "In any populated system, there is a place," she said slowly. "An old battlefield from the merchant wars, lots of wrecked ships and debris. We could hide there while we figure out what to do next." The journey took 6 hours through hyperspace. When they emerged near the battlefield, Mina was shocked by what she saw. The area was filled with thousands of destroyed ships from a battle that had happened 50 years ago. Cruisers and fighters and cargo vessels all twisted together in a massive graveyard of metal and memories. They found a hiding spot inside the hull of a destroyed battleship. The ship was so big that their stolen vessel fit inside its cargo bay with room to spare. Mina powered down all their systems except air recycling, and they settled in to wait. "Now what?" she asked Dojin. The Dragon Prince was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was filled with ancient sadness. "I have been running and hiding for 300 years. I thought it was the only way to survive. But seeing you face the Zirans without fear made me remember what I used to be." "What do you mean?" "I am the last of the Royal War Dragons. My family ruled an empire that spanned 1,000 worlds. We protected the weak and fought against tyranny wherever we found it. But when the Zirans came, I became a coward. I hid while they destroyed everything my people had built. Dojin's scales began to glow brighter as he spoke. His form started to grow larger until he filled half the small ship's cabin. But no more. They want to hunt me across the galaxy. Very well, let them try. But this time I will not run alone. What are you saying? There are others like Umina, beings who have suffered under Ziran rule. Worlds that want to be free, but lack the power to fight back. If we can find them and unite them, we might have a chance. A chance to do what? Dojin's golden eyes blazed with the fire of ancient kings. A chance to end the Ziran Empire forever. Outside their hiding place, the wreckage of old battles drifted silently through space. But inside the stolen ship, two unlikely allies were planning something that had not been seen in the galaxy for centuries. A dragon prince had awakened from his long sleep, and he was no longer content to hide in the shadows while evil ruled the stars. The hunt that Commander Vex had started was about to become something much bigger, a war that would shake the foundations of the galaxy itself. Word traveled fast through the hidden networks of the galaxy. In cantinas on forgotten worlds and in the cargo holds of smuggler ships, people whispered the impossible news. The Dragon Prince lived. The last heir of the royal house had awakened, and was calling for allies. Mina could hardly believe how quickly everything changed. One day she was hiding in a ship graveyard with only Dojin for company. The next day, rebels and freedom fighters were arriving from across known space to join their cause. The first to come was Hyan, a human pilot whose family had been killed during a Ziran raid on his home colony. His ship was fast and well armed, but his eyes held the same sadness that Mina had seen in Dojin when they first met. I heard the Dragon Prince was gathering an army, Hyan said when he found their hiding place. I want to help. Dojin studied the young pilot carefully. This is not a game, human. The Zirans will show no mercy to anyone who stands against them. You could die. My parents and sister are already dead, Hyan replied. The Zirans made sure of that. If I die fighting them, at least my death will mean something. Next came Nari, a brilliant engineer who had escaped from a Ziran slave labor camp. She was small and quiet, but her knowledge of alien technology was incredible. Within hours of arriving, she had improved their ship's engines and weapon systems. I can make your equipment better, she told Mina. But what we really need is a base of operations. Somewhere we can build ships and train fighters. More people arrived every day. Traders who had lost their businesses to Ziran taxes. Soldiers whose worlds had been conquered. Scientists whose research had been stolen. Each person had their own story of suffering, but they all shared the same burning desire for freedom. But the most amazing arrivals were not people at all. 3 weeks after they had begun gathering allies, Dojin suddenly became very excited. He stood at the front of their stolen ship with his scales glowing brighter than Mina had ever seen them. They are coming, he said with wonder in his voice. I can feel them awakening. Who is coming? Mina asked, though before Dojin could answer, she had her answer. A streak of silver light shot through space and landed on their ship with a sound like thunder. When the light faded, a dragon stood there. Not as large as Dojin, but still magnificent, with scales that shimmered like water and eyes like blue stars. My prince, the dragon said in a voice like singing crystal. I am Sulji of the Mountain Clan. I have slept for 200 years waiting for your call. More dragons arrived over the following days. They came from hidden caves on dead worlds and from the deep places between the stars where they had waited in magical sleep. Each one was different in size and color, but all of them knelt before Dojin and pledged their lives to his cause. Mina learned that dragons could live for thousands of years and that they had been hiding all across the galaxy since the Ziran genocide. The arrival of their prince had awakened something deep in their minds that told them it was time to return. How many dragons are still alive? She asked Dojin one evening as they planned their next move. Perhaps 50. Maybe less. We were once millions, but the Zirans were thorough in their hunting. 50 dragons did not sound like many, but Mina quickly learned that dragons were incredibly powerful. A single adult dragon could destroy a Zirin cruiser with its fire breath. A group of dragons working together could level entire cities, but they needed more than raw power to win a war. They needed strategy and resources, and most importantly, they needed a place to build their strength. That place turned out to be a dead world called Sungri in an unexplored system far from Zirin space. The planet had once been home to an advanced civilization, but some ancient disaster had left it empty and lifeless. Perfect for hiding a growing rebellion, Mina found herself in charge of planning and logistics. She had never led anything more complicated than a salvage operation, but somehow she was now helping to coordinate a galaxy-wide resistance movement. "You have a gift for seeing the big picture," Nari told her as they worked on plans for their new base. "Most people think about one problem at a time. You think about how everything connects." The work was harder than anything Mina had ever done. During the day, she helped plan supply routes and training schedules. At night, she studied star charts and intelligence reports. She learned about Zirin military tactics and the politics of a dozen different species, but the hardest part was watching Dojin change. As more dragons arrived and pledged themselves to his service, he became more like the prince he was born to be. He was still kind to Mina, but she could see the weight of leadership settling on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. "Sometimes I miss when you were small enough to sit on my shoulder," she told him one night as they stood looking up at the stars above Sungri. Dojin smiled sadly. "I miss those simple days too, when my biggest worry was whether you would have enough food to share. But we cannot go back, Mina. Too many people are depending on us now." He was right. Every day brought new reports of Ziren cruelty from across the galaxy, entire species enslaved, planets stripped of their resources, children taken from their families to serve in Ziren labor camps. But there was also good news. The rebellion was growing faster than anyone had expected. Worlds that had been conquered years ago were rising up against their Ziren occupiers. Smugglers and pirates were attacking Ziren supply convoys. Even some Ziren soldiers were deserting their posts rather than continue serving an empire built on suffering. The most important development came when they made contact with the Free Worlds Alliance, a group of independent systems that had managed to stay out of Ziren control. The Alliance had ships and weapons, but they had been too afraid to fight the Empire directly. "With dragons leading the way, they might finally have the courage to join us," Hyeon said after returning from a secret meeting with Alliance representatives. Everything was coming together. They had dragons, they had allies, they had a base of operations, and they had a growing network of rebels throughout Ziren space. But Mina knew that their real test was still coming. The Ziren Empire had ruled through fear for centuries. They had more ships than anyone could count and weapons that could crack planets in half. Most importantly, they had never lost a major war, but they had never faced dragons before. And they had certainly never faced a human woman who refused to give up when everything seemed hopeless. Standing on the surface of Sungri, watching dragons soar through alien skies, Mina could hardly believe how much her life had changed. 6 months ago, she had been a failed salvage worker spending her last 2 credits on a dying pet. Now she was helping to plan the largest rebellion in galactic history. And at the center of it all was Dojin, the magnificent dragon who had chosen to trust her when he was small and helpless. The storm was gathering. Soon it would be time to find out if kindness and courage could overcome an empire built on cruelty and fear. The galaxy was about to learn that humans might be small and weak compared to dragons and aliens, but they had something that no amount of weapons or technology could match. They had hearts that refused to break no matter how dark things became, and sometimes that was enough to change everything. The final battle began at dawn over the Ziren homeworld. Mina piloted her specially modified ship alongside Dojin as he soared through space in his full dragon form. Around them flew dozens of other dragons with rebel ships from 100 different worlds. It was the largest fleet ever assembled against the Ziren Empire. But as they approached the enemy homeworld, Mina could see that the Zirens had been preparing for this moment. Thousands of black warships waited in perfect formation around their planet like a deadly metal shell. There are so many of them, Hyon said over the communication system. His fighter flew close to Mina's ship with its weapons already charged. Numbers do not always decide battles, Dajin replied. His mental voice reached every ship in the rebel fleet. Today we fight not just for victory but for the freedom of every living being in this galaxy. The battle started when the Ziran ships opened fire. Streams of energy weapons lit up space like deadly fireworks. But the dragons were ready. They moved through the weapon fire like dancers avoiding raindrops. Their own fire breath melted enemy hulls and turned proud warships into floating scrap metal. Mina had trained for months to fight. Alongside Dajin, her ship was equipped with special shields that could protect them both from enemy fire. More importantly, she had learned to think like a dragon, to see the battle as a whole instead of just individual fights. Enemy reinforcements coming from the left, she told Dajin as she spotted new ships approaching. 12 cruisers and a battleship. Dajin rolled in space and breathed a stream of golden fire that cut through the enemy formation like a sword through paper. The battleship exploded in a ball of light that briefly outshone the system's sun, but even as they destroyed enemy ships, more kept coming. The Ziran Empire had been building its fleet for centuries, and they seemed to have an endless supply of vessels and soldiers. We are winning individual battles but losing the war, Nari reported from the command ship. They have too many ships. We cannot destroy them all. That was when Mina remembered something Dajin had told her weeks ago. The Ziran Empire was built on fear. Their soldiers fought because they were afraid of being punished for failure. Their subject worlds obeyed because they were afraid of being destroyed. But what happened when that fear was turned around? Dajin, she said, we need to make them afraid of us instead of the other way around. What do you mean? Challenge their leader to single combat. Show the entire galaxy that the Ziran Emperor can be defeated. It was a dangerous plan. The Ziran Emperor was not just a political leader, but also their greatest warrior. He had personally killed dozens of enemies in combat, and his ship was the most heavily armed vessel in their fleet. But it was also the only way to end the battle without destroying everything. Dajin grew to his largest size and flew directly toward the center of the Ziran formation. His scales blazed with light that could be seen from every ship in both fleets. When he spoke, his voice carried across space itself. Emperor Corvex, I am Prince Dojin of the Royal Dragon House, last heir of the empire you destroyed. I challenge you to face me in single combat as our ancestors did in the old days. The battle stopped. Every ship on both sides held their fire and waited to see what would happen. For long minutes there was only silence as the Ziran Emperor considered the challenge. Finally, a ship detached itself from the Ziran formation. It was larger than any other vessel Mina had ever seen, with weapons that looked like they could crack moons. The ship stopped halfway between the two fleets and a voice boomed across space. I accept your challenge, dragon. But know that when I kill you, your rebellion dies with you. Emperor Corvex emerged from his ship in full battle armor. He was twice the size of a normal Ziran with cybernetic implants that enhanced his strength and speed. In his hands he carried energy weapons that crackled with deadly power, but when he saw Dojin in all his magnificent glory, the Emperor's confident expression changed to something like fear. You are smaller than I expected, Corvex said, trying to sound brave. The stories about dragon princes must have been exaggerated. The stories, Dajin replied, did not mention our human allies. That was Mina's cue. She flew her ship directly between the two warriors and activated every weapon system at once. Energy beams and missiles filled the space around Emperor Corvex. While he was distracted by Dajin, the Ziran leader was fast and strong, but he had never faced coordinated attacks from both a dragon and a human pilot working as a perfect team. Every time he dodged Dojin's fire breath, he flew into Mina's weapons. Every time he avoided her missiles, he exposed himself to dragon claws and teeth. The battle lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours to everyone watching. Finally, Emperor Corvex made a mistake. He focused too much on Dajin and forgot about Mina. She put her ship into a diving attack that brought her weapons within point-blank range. "This is for everyone who suffered under your empire," she said, as she fired every weapon at once. The combined attack from Mena's ship and Dojin's fire breath overwhelmed the Emperor's defenses. His armor cracked and his weapons exploded. As he floated helplessly in space, Dojin moved in for the final strike. "Your empire is finished," Dojin told the defeated Emperor. "Surrender now, and I will allow your people to live in peace." Emperor Corvex looked around at his fleet and saw something that broke his spirit completely. Ziran ships were surrendering. Soldiers who had served the Empire their entire lives were laying down their weapons rather than continue fighting for a leader who had just been defeated by the enemies he had claimed were weak and pathetic. "I surrender," the Emperor said quietly. The word spread through both fleets like wildfire. The Ziran Empire had fallen. The rebellion had won. Across the galaxy, worlds that had been enslaved for centuries were suddenly free, but for Mina the most important moment came later when she and Dojin returned to Sungri. They landed near the base they had built together and walked to the same hill where they had planned their rebellion. "You could rule the galaxy now," Mina told him. "Everyone would follow the Dragon Prince who defeated the Ziran Empire." Dojin considered this for a moment, then shook his great head. "I have learned something from you, Mina. True strength does not come from ruling others. It comes from helping them find their own power." Instead of becoming an emperor, Dojin helped establish a new kind of government. A federation of free worlds where humans and aliens and dragons all had equal voices. Where decisions were made by cooperation instead of conquest. Mina became the Federation's first ambassador, traveling between worlds to help solve problems and prevent conflicts. She was no longer a failed salvage worker, but she never forgot the lessons she had learned in those desperate early days. Sometimes late at night, she would look up at the stars and remember the tiny sick creature she had bought for 2 credits. It seemed impossible that such a small act of kindness could have changed the entire galaxy, but that was the thing about kindness. It grew and spread and touched other lives in ways that no one could predict. A human woman sharing her last food with a dying pet had started a chain of events that brought down the greatest empire in galactic history. The universe was a big and often cruel place, but it was also full of small moments when one being chose to help another. And sometimes those small moments were enough to change everything. Dojin often visited Mina at her new home on a peaceful world near the galactic center. He would shrink down to his smaller size and sit with her in her garden while they talked about their adventures and planned new ways to help those in need. "Do you ever regret buying a broken pet for 2 credits?" he asked her one evening as they watched the sunset. Mina smiled and scratched behind his ears the way she had when he was tiny. "Best purchase I ever made," she said. "Even if you did eat me out of house and home." Dojin laughed, a sound like distant thunder mixed with music. Somewhere among the stars, former enemies were learning to live in peace. And it had all started with a lonely woman who chose kindness over caution in a forgotten pet shop on the edge of nowhere. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly how it should be.